The sound of rushing water fills the air as a woman clings to the edge of a fast-moving river. She is struggling, slipping, and every moment seems like it could be her last. But there is something unusual about her situation. A silent hero is nearby, watching, waiting. This hero is not a lifeguard, nor a person, but her pet cat, who has always been by her side. In the middle of the chaos, the cat leaps into action, diving into the water without hesitation. Most people would never expect a cat to be capable of saving a life. But this particular feline is not just any pet. The bond between the woman and her cat is deeper than most can understand. This is a story of loyalty, courage, and an unimaginable turn of events. What drives the cat to act in such a way? Why does it leap into the water when everything seems lost? This is just the beginning of a tale that will defy all expectations and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about animals and their loyalty. Keep watching to find out how this unbelievable rescue unfolds. The quiet of a small rural town is broken by the sound of a door creaking open. Inside, the dim light flickers across walls lined with photographs, awards, and memories. This is where Sarah, the woman who once walked the streets with confidence and courage, now finds herself living in isolation. Her days are spent mostly in silence, overshadowed by the burden of a past she cannot escape. In another part of the house, her once beloved cat Luna watches her from the corner of the room. Sarah tries to reach out to her pet, calling her name gently, but Luna, who had once always come running to her, remains distant. The cat's response is minimal, just a flick of the tail, a disinterested gaze, and this disconnection weighs heavily on Sarah's heart. It has been weeks since Sarah had been in an accident that left her with serious injuries. But it is not just her body that is hurt. It is her heart. The trauma of the accident, combined with the loss of her own sense of self, has caused a rift between her and Luna. The once joyful cat, who had been her emotional anchor, now appears as if a stranger. She knows that Luna is still physically present, but the warmth, the connection they once shared, feels like it has disappeared. Sarah remembers the days when Luna used to curl up on her lap after a long day, purring softly as if her mere presence could heal all of Sarah's wounds. She remembers how Luna had been there for her during tough times, when Sarah had faced long nights of insomnia, or when anxiety seemed to grip her every thought. Luna was always there, a small, quiet force of comfort and companionship. But now, as she sits alone on the couch, watching Luna from a distance, she feels a profound emptiness. The house feels too big, too silent, and the familiar hum of Luna's purring seems like a distant memory. Sarah is not sure what has happened, but the bond they once shared seems to have faded. It is as if Luna no longer recognizes her, as though something inside the cat has shifted. She tries to remember if she did something wrong, if it was something about the accident that scared Luna, but no answer comes. Meanwhile, Luna is not without her own confusion. She moves around the house, unsure of where to go, what to do. The once cozy corners of Sarah's home, where she and Luna had shared so many moments, feel cold and unfamiliar. Luna feels the disconnect too. Her body still close to Sarah, but her heart, her trust, not quite there. Every time Sarah tries to engage with her, Luna withdraws just a little more. What is at stake here is not just the emotional well-being of Sarah and Luna, but the very essence of the bond they had forged over the years. For Sarah, Luna had been her anchor, her constant source of comfort and companionship through the hardest parts of her life. She had never imagined that their relationship could be anything but unbreakable. The idea of losing that connection, of never again having Luna's warmth by her side, feels like a second injury, one that is harder to heal than the physical wounds she carries. For Luna, there is a quiet struggle too. She does not understand why Sarah is different now. She does not know why her once caring owner has become a stranger in her eyes. Luna feels the absence of the joy and comfort she once received from Sarah's presence. And yet, there is something deep within her, a flicker of recognition, that says all may not be lost. It is a battle between instinct and confusion, between the cat's desire to trust and her instinct to protect herself from what feels like uncertainty. The emotional journey ahead is not just about physical healing. It is about finding a way back to each other. For Sarah, the challenge is to figure out how to bridge the emotional gap between herself and Luna. For Luna, the challenge is learning to trust again, to believe that the person she once knew is still there beneath the surface. The stakes are high because without this emotional reconnection, Sarah may continue to lose her sense of self, and Luna may never find her place in Sarah's world again. The bond between them is fragile, and both must find a way to rebuild it before it fades entirely. Sarah spends most of her days in the dim quiet of her home, her mind often wandering back to the days before the accident. She remembers the bond she had with Luna, how it felt like they were inseparable, as if they understood each other without saying a word. But now, each attempt to reconnect feels like it falls short. Luna's distant gaze, her refusal to curl up on Sarah's lap, and the absence of her comforting purrs at night all weigh heavily on Sarah's spirit. There are moments, however, when Sarah notices small changes. One afternoon, as she stands near the window, she absent-mindedly whistles, a sound she used to make whenever Luna was in another room, calling her back for dinner or playtime. For a split second, she swears she sees Luna's ears twitch, her tail flicking just slightly. But when Sarah looks closer, Luna has already turned her head away, uninterested. These moments of recognition, though brief, give Sarah hope. It is a fragile hope, but it is hope nonetheless. She tries again the next morning, standing by the door and calling out to Luna in her usual gentle voice. "Luna, come here, girl." This time, Luna slowly rises from her bed and walks toward her. But there is no rush in her steps, no joy in her eyes. She merely sits at Sarah's feet, waiting, staring up at her. It is progress, Sarah tells herself, but it also feels like a reminder of everything they've lost. Frustration begins to set in. Sarah spends her nights reflecting on what went wrong. Why is Luna not responding like she used to? She questions herself, wondering if the accident changed her in a way she cannot comprehend, perhaps even altering the way Luna sees her. The memories of their joyful days together become even more poignant. She recalls the way Luna had followed her everywhere, always at her side, always waiting for her to return home, even from the smallest errand. Luna had been more than a pet. She had been a lifeline, a companion who made her feel whole. The thought of losing that, of not being able to rekindle their bond, is unbearable. In the midst of this growing frustration, Sarah begins to see Luna's behavior with others, and it only deepens her sense of loss. One afternoon, as Sarah watches from the living room, Luna curls up in the lap of Sarah's mother, who had been visiting. The sight strikes Sarah deeply. Luna, who once only sought comfort from her, is now offering affection to someone else. The sting is sharp, and Sarah feels a wave of jealousy and sadness that she quickly tries to hide. Why is Luna offering affection to others, but not to her? Did she not deserve it anymore? The emotional tension between Sarah and Luna grows, and Sarah cannot help but feel the chasm between them widening, despite her best efforts. As the days pass, Sarah finds herself in a constant cycle of hope and disappointment. She tries harder to call to Luna, to coax her into playing like they used to, but the cat's indifference is evident. Yet, there are still glimmers of the cat Sarah once knew, moments where Luna briefly rests her head on Sarah's lap before pulling away, or where her eyes seem to soften just a little when Sarah speaks her name. One rainy evening, Sarah finds herself sitting on the porch, staring into the storm as tears mix with the raindrops. Luna is perched beside her, as she had been in the past. Something about the atmosphere feels familiar, like a memory that Sarah has been trying to reach but can't quite grasp. She speaks softly to Luna, telling her that she misses their old life together, that she just wants things to be the way they were. Luna watches her, her gaze steady but still distant. Then, as if guided by some unseen force, Luna places her paw gently on Sarah's hand. The contact is light but meaningful, and Sarah freezes, her heart racing. Is it possible? Is Luna finally remembering her? Could it be that their bond has not been completely severed, and there is still hope for them? The small act of affection is brief, but it stirs something deep within Sarah. She realizes that Luna's behavior is not about forgetting her. It's about healing. Perhaps Luna is still struggling, just as Sarah is. The emotional disconnection they have both felt is part of a larger, painful journey. But it is not a journey that they have to walk alone. The days following that moment of connection are filled with mixed emotions. Sarah tries to keep her expectations low, yet the small signs of recognition keep appearing. One day, as she prepares to leave for a short walk, she calls out to Luna, who had been lying in her favorite spot by the door. This time, Luna responds, more quickly, her eyes lighting up for just a brief moment before she pads over to Sarah, rubbing against her leg affectionately. Sarah's heart swells, but doubt lingers in the back of her mind. Is this real progress, or is she simply seeing what she wants to see? The line between hope and heartbreak becomes blurrier each day. Despite these doubts, Sarah does not give up. With every small gesture, every moment of recognition, she feels a flicker of the bond they had before. But then, just as Sarah begins to believe that Luna is truly coming back to her, a setback occurs. Luna, once again, seeks affection from Sarah's mother, curling up in her lap without hesitation. The sight leaves Sarah feeling like a stranger in her own home. She cannot help but feel the pain of rejection, even as she tries to stay strong. Each setback feels like a cruel reminder that reconnection is not an easy process. But as the tension builds, Sarah also begins to realize something important. Luna's indifference is not a sign of abandonment. It is a reflection of their shared struggle to heal, to return to each other after a difficult and painful separation. As Sarah moves forward, she knows that it will take time, but she also understands that the small steps, no matter how slow, are signs of the bond slowly being rebuilt. The emotional arc of her journey is still unfolding, and with every passing day, the tension between hope and frustration continues to grow. But Sarah refuses to give up on Luna. The connection they once shared is worth fighting for, and she will not stop until she finds it again. Sarah had almost given up. After weeks of trying to reconnect with Luna, the cat still showed little interest in her. The days had begun to blur together, filled with small disappointments and painful reminders of the past. Every attempt to call Luna, every soft gesture, every hopeful whistle felt like it was in vain. Yet Sarah could not bring herself to let go. Something deep inside her told her that Luna was still in there, waiting for the right moment. It was one quiet evening, when the golden light of dusk was fading from the windows, that Sarah finally decided to take a different approach. Exhausted and defeated, she sat on the floor of the living room, her back leaning against the sofa. With a deep sigh, she called out to Luna once more. But this time, there was something different in her voice. A softness, a vulnerability, as if she were speaking not to the cat, but to the parts of herself she had lost. Luna, please, I need you. I miss you, girl. Luna was in the other room, sitting on the windowsill, gazing out at the setting sun. Sarah's voice broke the silence of the house, and for the first time in a long while, Luna stirred. There was a pause, a long moment where nothing happened. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest, unsure if Luna had heard her at all. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, Luna stood up and padded quietly toward Sarah. It was as though she had finally decided to acknowledge the woman who had called her. No longer the distant, indifferent cat, but something more familiar. Something that Sarah recognized deep within herself. Luna stopped in front of Sarah, gazing at her with wide, searching eyes. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt a surge of warmth, of recognition, rise within her. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and as she touched Luna's soft fur, the cat leaned in, pressing her head into Sarah's palm. The moment felt suspended in time. Luna's tail twitched. Then it began to wag, a small, tentative movement at first. But as it continued, the wagging grew more deliberate, more confident. Sarah gasped, the overwhelming weight of the moment crashing down on her. Her eyes filled with tears as she realized what had just happened. Luna recognized her. In that simple, small gesture, the wag of a tail, the nuzzle of a head against her hand, everything Sarah had hoped for finally fell into place. The bond they shared had not been broken. It had just been hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be rediscovered. But the moment was not without its complexity. As Sarah held Luna close, she felt a pang of bittersweet realization. They had both suffered so much, each in their own way, and the journey back to each other had been long and painful. Luna had not returned to her in an instant. The recognition had been hard-earned, forged through patience, vulnerability, and acceptance. The air between them seemed to settle, and for the first time in months, Sarah felt like she was not alone. There was no longer that quiet, unspoken distance between them. It was as if they had found each other again, even though they both knew that things would never be the same. They had been through too much, changed too much, to simply pick up where they left off. But there was hope now. Hope that they could move forward together, healing slowly, piece by piece. Just when Sarah felt the weight of relief wash over her, a small sound broke the moment. It was a subtle noise, a distant scratching at the door. Luna's ears pricked up, and for a brief, fleeting second, her attention wavered. She glanced toward the door, as if momentarily distracted by something else. It was a small gesture, but it reminded Sarah that this was not a fairy tale. Their journey toward reconnection was just that, a journey. There were still bumps along the way, moments of uncertainty. Luna looked back at Sarah, her eyes soft and full of an understanding that neither of them could fully express in words. The cat's affection was clear, but there was also something unspoken in the air, something that hinted that even though they had made significant progress, the full depth of their bond would take time to rebuild. But for now, that one moment of recognition was enough. The tail wagged, the eyes met, and the distance between them closed just a little bit more. They had found each other once again, and that was a victory in itself. Sarah and Luna's journey had been long, filled with moments of doubt, frustration, and quiet hope. When Sarah first brought Luna into her life, their bond had been immediate, unspoken, yet undeniable. Luna had been her comfort during dark days, her constant companion through both joyful and difficult times. But after the accident, when Sarah's world had been shaken, it felt as though that bond had fractured. The distance between them seemed impossible to bridge, and Sarah's heart felt heavy with the thought that she had lost the one thing that had always understood her. But tonight, something had changed. After weeks of small, hesitant steps, Luna had finally approached her, acknowledging her in a way that Sarah had not anticipated. The once distant cat had shown the faintest flicker of recognition, not out of obligation, but out of something deeper. Something that had been buried, but never truly gone. It was a moment that took Sarah by surprise, a moment that felt like both an end and a beginning. As Luna curled up next to Sarah on the couch, her warmth once again a soothing presence. Beside her, Sarah realized that the journey was far from over. They were not entirely healed, not yet whole. The emotional scars, the lingering doubts, and the uncertainty about the future remained. But the connection between them had been reawakened. It was fragile, it was raw, but it was real. Luna, too, had changed. In her own way, she had learned that sometimes even the smallest gestures of love could mend what had been broken. She had learned that even after everything had seemed lost, there could still be hope for a new start. As Sarah leaned her head back against the couch, the quiet companionship of the cat beside her felt like the beginning of something new. Something that would take time to fully heal, but was worth the effort. There was no sudden miracle, no grand revelation. But what Sarah had learned, and what Luna had taught her, was that sometimes healing came in the most unexpected ways. The road ahead would not be easy, and they would face setbacks, moments of doubt and frustration. But they had something now, a deeper understanding of each other, a quiet knowing that even when words failed, there was still a bond strong enough to weather the storms. The past would always be a part of them, but it did not have to define their future. In the end, Sarah smiled softly, a quiet tear slipping down her cheek. It was not a tear of sadness, but of acceptance. She had finally realized that healing, like love, was a journey that could not be rushed or forced, but one that unfolded at its own pace. And though they might never be fully healed, she and Luna had found a new chapter, one where hope could grow again, slowly but surely. As the night grew darker, Sarah whispered softly to Luna, her voice filled with gratitude and tenderness. "We still have each other." And for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of peace. It was not a perfect peace, nor a complete one, but it was a peace she could live with, a peace born from understanding, from patience, and from the love of a cat who had finally returned to her side. If you believe in the incredible bond between humans and animals, and the healing power of second chances, then this story is for you. Luna's journey to reconnect with Sarah shows us that love and loyalty can transcend time, distance, and even trauma. If you found this story inspiring, and it reminded you of the power of patience and hope, be sure to give this video a like. For more heartwarming stories of animals changing lives, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you've ever experienced a special connection with a pet, share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.